Okay, oh, and the mics work this time. I like it. This is, I think, one of the first we've had since they were not working last month. Good evening, everyone. With the posted time having arrived and a quorum of members present, I'll call the Public Health and Safety Committee to order. Today is Monday, July 15th, 2024, and we have a quorum present. The first item on our agenda is the approval of the minutes from our last meeting, June 17th of 2024, copies of which are in the packets. Does anyone have any revisions or adjustments that they would like to see for the minutes? If not, I'll take a motion to approve.
I'll move to approve.
Motion from Watson, is there a second?
I will second.
Second by Larson. Discussion? Seeing none, members in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None are opposed, and the minutes are approved. Item number 2 is to consider approval or denial of various license applications. And we've got those in the packet as well. Let me just switch over to the packet here. And let me see, I think we had one recommended for denial. I have to just find him. Okay, so we do have one operator recommended for denial, and under our ordinance, denied applicants can address the committee if they wish to discuss the denial. That operator is Jonathan Betts Rojas. Jonathan Betts Rojas. Is he with us this evening? We'll let the record show he has not attended. Separate from that, we have a couple of events. We have the Wausau Festival, All Stars Under the Stars, happening downtown in August. And so there's a sidewalk cafe permit for Jefferson Street Inn. The applications for those, the legal department is asking that we approve those contingent upon receipt of proof of insurance. They're still waiting on one document from each of them, but they're asking that the clerk would collect those documents before they issue those permits, which certainly can be done, so there's that. Also, there's a new Class B in the mix, Juliet Cocktails at 608 North 3rd Street. That establishment is new. It's between it's next door to Back When. The subcommittee reviewed that application prior to this meeting and unanimously recommended approval. It's going to keep limited hours, 5 to 11-ish, not typical bar hours. So craft cocktail type operation is what was described. So if anyone has any questions on any of these, if not, I would take there's one other public transport operator that was recommended for denial we need to check on, right? Christopher McGurk? Is Christopher McGurk with us this evening? Let the record show he is not with us either then, so neither of those are in attendance tonight. If there's no discussion of the items with that, I would accept a motion to accept or deny licenses as recommended by staff with the applications contingent upon insurance being approved as such, so that those permits and applications would be approved pending receipt of insurance verification by the clerk's office. We have a motion from Lukens. Is there a second? Second by Watson. Further discussion? Seeing none, members in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed? None are opposed, those motions carry. Switch us back to the agenda. Item number 3 is discussion and possible action on granting a request for a 90-day extension to open for business for good cause. State Park Speedway LLC, owner Tim Wimmer, doing business as Campus Pub at 1110 West Campus Drive. And so you see we had approved that one a while back. I think they were doing some remodeling, correct? Did you talk with the owner?
Yes.
And he is there. So if you want to come up, Tim, just, I guess, talk to us about how things are progressing and when you would expect to be ready for opening.
Things are progressing slowly.
Okay.
Because of a lack of contractors. And also, I wanted to add a food to the mix, which we didn't have, which the prior owner didn't have. I did locate a hood, but I cannot get it until September, an exhaust hood. So we could open earlier and just serve alcohol and liquor. We wouldn't have the food offering. So if need be, I guess we could be open relatively soon. But we're waiting on a kitchen remodel to do the full thing.
Okay, what are your thoughts, committee? Would you want them to open and use the liquor license open the way Campus Pub was open and then add the food later, or would you want to grant an extension to wait on that piece? You have either option. I mean, the extension would be 90 days, so that would put you well into the fall if, Go ahead, Sarah.
I guess what are the cons, I guess, to opening up early before your kitchen's ready?
I don't think we'll be profitable, to be honest, if we're just selling alcohol and doing what was done there before. We want to kind of re-image the entire.
Because you were looking for a little more of a restaurant vibe, right? Like a
Exactly.
burger and beer type place, if I remember right.
But that being said, if need be, we could open. I just probably wouldn't have, 7-day-a-week hours at this point. We'd just be limited hours.
I think we could. We have the option to do, the clerk just asked, could we do a 60-day extension? That would put us about to the end of September. That would give you some time to
Yeah.
get that hood in.
That would be
And
fine.
get that food offering ready. So we would have the option to grant a 60-day extension if the committee so chooses.
And that wouldn't put you it wouldn't get you too close to you think the delivery is beginning?
I mean, it's hard to say, but like I said, if need be, we could open here shortly. And I guess we'd be prepared to do that by the end of September.
Okay.
We'll get it operating by the end of September with or without the food offering.
Sure.
It'd just be nice to be closer to that.
Well, and like you said, if you're willing to try to rebrand it, then some of the things that maybe were challenging for the other owner when they didn't have that food offering, you would probably invite that right back if you didn't have the whole
Exactly.
offering. So, okay, would there be a motion from within the committee to offer or grant a 60-day extension for opening?
I'll make that motion.
Motion by Larson, second by Watson. Further discussion? Seeing none, members in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed? None are opposed, that motion carries. Thanks for coming in.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye-bye. Item number 4 is the quarterly report from the police department. Anything notable on the report that you want to point out to us, Chief?
Nothing specific. I would simply, one of the things which is a consistent issue that we've dealt with every year, we take the staffing of our special events very seriously to be a responsible community. So you'll notice overtime is always an issue. It's one of the things within our control. And we pay a significant amount of overtime every summer in order to staff special events. So far, they've been going very well this summer, but we're just getting in the groove right now, I would say. So that is a concern. And then the other thing outlined, you'll notice 2 things on I try and pick a couple things to write to you and the community about. One is we're seeing success with our CSO program. It's as robust as it's ever been. There's 18 different yellow shirts running around. And they're learning and really making an impact, so I'm proud of the work they've been doing. And then we'll talk a little bit more about this during the committee of the whole, but our 2 officers that are spending time downtown, I'm getting feedback from business owners and citizens alike, commenting on a change in behavior and a reduction in issues that they're seeing and improved quality of life. So I'm also very proud of the work they've been doing, and I look forward to seeing that continue.
Excellent. Any questions on the report, committee members, as you are going through? If not, we'll place that report on file. Item 5 is the quarter 2 report for the fire department. Anything on your report that you want to point out, Deputy Chief Plus?
It's mentioned in the report, but I'd just like to point out that the fire department has recently, since last quarter, had 3 more resignations in our department, so that has reduced the number of people in our department, and we're actively recruiting for new members, which is a challenge for many departments across the state of Wisconsin. But we're hopeful in this next process that's currently open, we'll have qualified applicants to fill those vacancies. And then the community care paramedic position has been posted. We hope to bring that community care paramedic on board mid-August.
Excellent. One thing I will say I observed is that in terms of recruitment, I'm inspired to see the embracing of videography and social media by the department, the police department also. Both public safety departments are using, Ethan and his talents in terms of videography and just even posting like training opportunities so that the public knows, that when you're standing in front of a burning garage, it's training, not really a burning garage and things like that. But I think helping people see what a day in the life is like, and I think that's maybe helpful for people that might be interested. So I was glad to see that's happening too.
Yeah, Ethan's been instrumental in that aspect, and we've established a few new committees, and social media being one of those committees, with an emphasis on using that social media committee to enhance and support our recruitment efforts.
Yep, it's really some professional-looking stuff that you've been putting out there. So, anybody have any questions on anything they've seen on the fire report? If not, we'll place that fire report on file as well. Item 6 is the Tavern Activities Report for the month of June. Anybody have any questions on anything that they picked up on that report based on Tavern activity? Anything that you wanted to talk to us about, Chief?
Well, I know you're aware of this because we communicated via email, but June was a pretty light month, but there was a concern regarding the Tavern report by at least one media source that doesn't feel it's adequate to help them educate their readers. I had asked Deputy Chief Todd Baton to take a look at that today and be prepared. I don't know what he's going to say. I haven't had a chance to discuss that with him, but he looked at the calls for service and
Yeah.
compared reports and is here to answer any questions or give you his take on that.
We've been
assessment.
on this new format for a few months, and I think our goal was to make it easy to prepare for the people preparing it and yet keep us informed. But you'll recall in our old format, when we were getting the old report that was less of a spreadsheet and more of a narrative, you were able to pick out a little more about like what happened where, to understand like a little bit of the flavor of what that you were summoned there for and what action got taken. And this is a little bit less of that. I mean, you just don't see quite that level of detail. I received the complaint from the media partner just saying, hey, I think it's important for the public to understand what goes on at these places, because then, if there is a situation where the city is conducting some type of license enforcement or whatever, that the public's attention has been called to the fact that there's a reason for that action to be happening. And so, they would put out a little snippet every month of what happened in the report as they covered this meeting. And they felt like the detail was too scant, and they were looking for the old format back, just because it is, and I did have a citizen mention to me when we went to the new format, they asked me if the little paragraphs were coming back, like where there was just a synopsis, basically, of what took place, because people who followed the meeting packets enjoyed that also. So, I guess it's up to us what we want to see for information. I'd be fine with a little more detail. Go ahead, Todd.
Yeah, I think you hit it right on the head as far as the older format definitely gave a greater flavor of what was happening at a lot of these locations. At an earlier point in my career, I was responsible, took my turn in compiling that monthly report for a number of years. And back then, we would just search every licensed establishment for the whole previous month within our dispatch records, and we would throw everything out there. So you were getting parking complaints and medical emergencies and sometimes traffic stops that had stuff that had really nothing to do with the licensed establishment, but now just became fodder for you to read. And so with some other direction and conversation, we kind of swung back the other way, and we wanted to be mindful of the volume of information that you are required to digest as part of your responsibilities as committee members and being on the council. And so I guess in that interest, we've left out a lot of that stuff. We've kind of filtered out a lot of those things. And yes, this last month was pretty light. But I think in light of some of that feedback and looking at what I viewed today, I definitely think there's some additional things we could have included in there. But I'll be real honest with you, like it isn't a whole lot of stuff.
Right.
It just isn't. Many of these things have no bearing on the establishment.
Right.
I'll cite one example. There was some type of an altercation outside of one of our establishments long after the establishment was closed. There was a sort of a kind of jaw-jacking back and forth between a couple of individuals that resulted in someone picking up a rock and throwing it at the other individual. It struck a window, cracked a window. It necessitated officers having to call the establishment owner. That would have shown up in here, but it really had nothing to do with the establishment or their activities as a licensed establishment at all. And so trying to be judicious in what we put on here, I think, we really did trim it down. But I will say this idea of, hey, noteworthy events are going to be included. That's also somewhat of a subjective concept. What
Right.
might be noteworthy to one individual isn't necessarily as noteworthy perhaps to us.
Right.
And so I think what we need to do is we'll take another crack at that and strike a hopefully a better balance based on whatever instruction you were to give to us.
Well, and we never complain about a light month. You know, when stuff is going well and there's not a lot of stuff happening, that means that people are doing it right. And we certainly should never complain about a lack of incidents in our establishments. But I do think that, you know, as you're going through it, if you feel, I mean, like, to us, noteworthy has always meant things that are relevant to the operation of the establishment. So not the traffic stop and the broken window, but, you know, that, like, in the one, you outlined 3 fights this month. That's important to us. People refusing to leave the place where they can't get people out of there, even though they're trying, like, you know, and there was some narrative in those where the establishment sought help in getting someone out rather than waiting for the patron to call. You know, it helped us understand if the establishment was initiating the contact to proactively work with you, or if this was a reaction to something that they had, you know, failed to call about, because the failing to call is actually the negative, or, you know, is that relationship breaking down? Like, do we need to have a follow-up conversation? And from this, it's hard to glean that, but it's a short, like you said, it's a short month. So, you know, I guess my only ask would be that as we are going through the log, if there's stuff that we feel is relevant to how the place is run, that's, I feel like, what matters to us. Is that, Sarah?
Yeah, especially things that are happening in the establishment when they're open.
Sure.
I would think something
Yep.
that just sort of tells the flavor of that.
Yep.
Because you
And
don't
they-
want them to get a negative image just because there's traffic stops out front of their
And
establishment.
I think that
right?
was part of it as well. Like, we wanted to limit some of that,
Negative.
I guess, sort of exposure
Right.
in this quasi-public sense. I mean, it's public, but I don't know how many people are really reading this on the regular. But just for context and for comparison, I looked at the Tavern report from June of 2023, and we had, I think it was 29 or 30 incidents were listed on there compared to the 3 from here. So that's quite a paring down.
Right.
But this is good feedback and helpful for us.
Yeah, if we could find some middle ground, so we can kind of, like
sure.
you said, distill some of the minutia type stuff, but then other stuff that we may find relevant to how the place is operating when people are there, that's what really matters to us the most. And Sarah?
Just because I'm relatively new, and I think it has a lot of good information in it. I think you get to the nuts and bolts. But can I just ask a thing about
Sure.
the amendment? Number 1, about the Demar Points. Like, there's lots of things on there that are pretty old. Do they stay on this list for like X amount of time, or until they get worked off or something?
Are you
You
on
know,
the
it's
back
on
here?
like, it's on page 43.
It's a 12-month running
Oh,
calendar.
I'm sorry,
Okay.
you have yeah.
Okay.
Sorry, I was looking at the actual Tavern report, but you had the packet up, so.
Yep. So this stuff ages off after a year,
Okay.
so.
Yeah,
Get
they'll
rid of
drop off from 12 months from the date of the offense that resulted in the demerit assessment.
Okay. Thanks.
Okay. Anything else anybody has as far as feedback on the report? That's all I had for this month, and that just actually came to me this morning. So I wanted to make sure and get that to you guys so that as you're watching the stuff for the next month or two, that we can see if we can find some kind of middle. Sarah?
And sort of along the lines of what you were talking about, like in the event, like summaries, it doesn't say like who called, like, you know, like you were saying, Lisa, if the bartender called, or was it a anonymous person?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think what we've done in the past, and I'm not super clear on this one with these 3 incidents. What we've done in the previous reports is if it was the establishment, say a bartender or
Or an employee, or-
it
yeah.
was like that was specified and
Yeah.
bolded. So there's 2 schools of thought here. Either we don't know in these, or the absence of that indicates to me it was not the bartender or a tavern employee in any of those.
And I
in
guess
any
that
3.
would be just like a piece of information that might be helpful,
Yeah.
like the origin of the call.
Especially if we have to reflect back on those narratives to express formal concern to an owner. Like if this builds up at this particular place and we have to bring the owner in, you know, if not calling the police is happening, that's huge for us where, you know, if they're reporting on their own, you know, we had the one that we ended up having to take the license back a number of years ago where, you know, they would bounce the stuff out in the parking lot and then it became a medical emergency because they didn't want to call. Well, that's wrong. So, I mean, that's the stuff we're on the lookout for. And so we want to try to get ahead of stuff like that. So I guess I guess we'll just, and what I had said to the media member also is give us a couple months to maybe dial this in and find some middle where you get relevant information, but you don't get the parking ticket type stuff that's just because they're in front of the place, so,
Excellent. Sounds good.
okay,
Thanks.
all right. That is our last agenda item, so I'll take a motion to adjourn. Motion by Watson, is there a second by Lukens? Members in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed? No one ever is. We'll stand adjourned then, and the Committee of the Whole will begin in this chamber at 6 o'clock. So thank you, everyone.